how Christians can end abortion. Hey, Pro-Life Gen, it's Kristen Hawkins. Welcome to this very special episode of the Explicitly Pro-Life podcast. We are, right now, filming this special episode behind the scenes at Standing With Her Sunday. We just finished our event of the national simulcast that was live streamed into dozens of churches, hundreds of small groups across the country. The goal of this event that we hosted at Students for Life and Standing With You was very simple: equip the church to respond to the crisis of abortion. Because as you all know, those who've been loyal fans of Explicitly Pro-Life, far too many women who seek abortions are Christians and actually say that they didn't think they had any help. This is where the church can step up. So if you didn't watch Standing With Her Sunday when it was live at the end of August, I want you to go to standingwithhersunday.org right now, or after this podcast maybe, and watch the full event. It was an incredible evening. I am so honored that we were able to bring so many pro-life leaders together in unity to talk about how to equip the church and give Christians across America tools and resources to use to speak into this issue knowledgeably and to love women and serve those and families in crisis pregnancies. But right now, I want to interview one of the guests who just spoke tonight. Her name is Toni McFadden. You probably have seen her before at Students for Life or Explicitly Pro-Life. She founded an organization called Relationships Matter. And Toni, I want you to just tell everybody listening, if they didn't tune in to Standing With Her Sunday, which they should have, why did you come tonight? Why did you join us tonight? What did you come to share?
Well, I came to share my post-abortive story, and I want to give the church an opportunity to see what a woman is actually going through, the thoughts that are going through her mind, and how the church can be a voice of hope to her, because the abortion industry is obviously not going to be a voice of hope for her. They feed into her fear. And I think the church has an amazing opportunity to step in and say, we could be the hope for you. But she has to know that they're going to provide the support that she needs.
What do you often see the church not doing? I didn't give you a prearranged question, just warning to everybody. What don't you see the church doing that you think the church can do more of? And I'm speaking of collectively the church to support post-abortive women and men after they choose abortion. And then, what don't you think that we're providing before that choice is made?
Well, I think that the church isn't being clear sometimes on what they truly believe about abortion.
Yeah.
And they often, or if they do speak on the sanctity of human life, they speak it only on that Sunday. You have the whole year.
Of Life Sunday.
Yes, that's what I meant. You can speak on any Sunday about this, but not gear it just towards the babies, because there are women sitting in your pews who are thinking, okay, that's me. I've done that, but I didn't hear them offer any forgiveness for me. And so that shame goes a little bit deeper. I think that we completely forget about men. We don't even bring them into the equation because it does affect them as well. But I think they're not offering resources. There's so many resources financially, the pregnancy resource centers that are out there that are providing for these women, and they have no idea. Start that in your church. Have a Bible study for them so that they have that resource that, they don't, so they know that they're not alone in this, instead of just hearing it one Sunday in the year and that's it. So the other question.
Speak about it. I'm trying to make this simple. Bullet points, people. Speak about abortion in your church often. Or, I always say, leave breadcrumbs. Even if your pastor is too much of a wuss to talk about it, put it in the bulletin, start a Respect Life group. And then the second piece of advice you just suggested was post-abortive, like a counseling group, study group.
Yeah, I went through Forgiven and Set Free. It's a 12-week Bible study by Linda Cochran. So helpful walking through my journey with that, because it's very scriptural based. And it really helped me to see not only my sin, but also the freedom in Christ. Because I've had so many women who have had abortions maybe even 30 years ago. and have never told anyone, and they think that's the only thing that Jesus isn't going to forgive. And that's heartbreaking. And because the church isn't doing its job in speaking in that area of her life.
Okay. Those are two very good ideas. All right. So what about for women and men before they get to Planned Parenthood's doors? What do you think the church needs to do more of or could step into more of?
Well, this is why I started Relationships Matter, because we need to get to the sex issue and not be afraid to talk about the sex issue to the teenagers, to let them value life, value their bodies. If we don't start talking about that, I don't think the abortion rate is ever going to go down, because if they don't value sex inside of marriage and understand the why behind why that's a beautiful thing, they're going to follow what the culture is feeding them. And so we have to go to the basics of that and start talking about that as well, and not shy away from talking about those issues.
Do you think this is a problem universally within Protestant, evangelical, and Catholic churches, just not talking to young people about sex?
I think the Catholic Church talks about it a lot. I don't think the Protestant church talks about it as much as they should. I wouldn't say across the board, but I know growing up, I did go to church here and there, and I never heard anything on saving sex for marriage. And I definitely never heard a sermon on abortion.
Are there resources for, I was raised in an evangelical church as well, and we never had these conversations as well. I think the sex talk, my mom was like, you're not supposed to, right? And I was like, yes. And then that was it. Like that was,
which is a problem to say it like that.
That was it. Like there wasn't really like a whole, so what are there actual resources out there for maybe somebody who's watching or listening, who's a youth pastor or is involved in their church? Like besides saying, hey, pastor, we need to talk about sex more here with our young people. Like, what's the, do they go to do you have a website or like, is there somewhere to go and like just spoon feed this information to pastors, youth pastors, group leaders? Yeah.
I know that there are, small root, grassroots like myself who are out talking about these things specifically. Yes, you can go to my website and book me there. But
what is that website?
ToniMcFadden.com.
There you go.
And Toni with an I, by the way.
Oh, there you
go. But I also know my local pregnancy resource center has a group that goes into the middle schools and the high schools, and they speak on that. So there are people going out and doing that, but it can't just be in the public schools either. Our church has to be speaking about it as well. And they have to know the why. Don't just say, don't have sex because you can get an STD or you can get pregnant. Explain the beauty of it, because sex isn't bad. It's just powerful, and it's meant to be in the right context, and that's what makes it beautiful.
I think that's a great idea of, if you are involved in church leadership, you want to talk to your young people at church about sex, just call the local pregnancy center. You can go to standingwithyou.org, optionline.org, type in your zip code, find your local pregnancy resource center, and call them and say, do you offer a program? Because I think you're right. There's many, many pregnancy resource centers, because, really that's how they're getting into schools and introducing themselves to young people in the community to feel safe to come to them when they're in crisis.
Exactly.
So I think that's a really good idea. And also just don't tell kids sex is bad, because it doesn't work out too well.
No, it's not.
They kind of figure it out on their own, and then no one's helping them out.
Right.
All right. Well, it's been a long day. Thank you, Toni, for coming on. Thank you for what you're doing across the country with Relationships Matters. I love seeing like your little video clips on, I think I follow you on Facebook, of when you're speaking at school. So make sure you go to ToniMcFadden.com with an I.
Yes, with an I.
With an I, and consider bringing Toni out to your next event, especially young people. I don't really like to talk about sex to teenagers.
I do.
But you do. So you can do it, because my advice is more of just don't do it. But you've got real good stuff. So
yes,
it's surprising that I don't. But you can do that.
We need to have a talk about that.
Yeah, we need to talk about that. But we'll talk about that later. That could be another podcast episode. Thank you all for listening. Stay right tuned. I'm going to come back, and we're going to have another special guest joining me behind the scenes. Hey everyone, I am back and we are still behind the scenes at National Standing with Her Sunday. And I have a very special guest with you, my good friend Kayla Kessinger. She's also a West Virginia native. Kayla, actually, we met when she was serving at the House of Delegates. Now she leads Her Plan in West Virginia. So Kayla, can you tell us what is Her Plan and what were you doing tonight? What were you speaking about on stage?
Absolutely. So Her Plan stands for Her Pregnancy and Life Assistance Network. And the whole goal, the whole reason we exist is to try and facilitate pregnancy and life assistance networks in states across the country, including West Virginia. And so I was really excited to be able to join you guys this evening because it's so encouraging for me to see what the pro-life movement is doing in communities across the country to really stand with women and defend life. And so one of the things that I talked about this evening was just the fact that there's really a place for everyone in the pro-life movement, right? Like, it doesn't matter where you're from, who you are, you have specific gifts and skills and strengths that the Lord has really planted inside of you. And it's incumbent upon us to really walk with women and use those gifts to help create cultures of life in our own communities.
Yeah. Well, I love what Her Plan is doing. You guys are kind of going in and kind of trying to look to see where the gaps are, vetting groups and different organizations to see where because it's more than just pregnancy centers.
Yes.
And I think that's where you guys, that's kind of your specialty, right? Like we have the pregnancy centers, we have maternity homes, but then there's other resources that women and families in crisis are going to need. And we need to figure out a way to connect everybody together. Is that...
Yeah, I think that's a really great explanation. Like, we like to say that we want to help facilitate collaboration for comprehensive care. So, one of the things that I mentioned this evening and I say all the time is the abortion industry wants us to believe that abortion is this one-size-fits-all solution to the problems that pregnant women are facing. But we in the pro-life movement know that could not be further from the truth, right? The pregnancy is not the crisis. Yep. It's the underlying situation, sometimes situations that she's dealing with that have left her feeling hopeless. And that may be homelessness, that may be struggling with addiction. In West Virginia, we have some significant problems with the opioid crisis in our state, or it could be, an abusive boyfriend or anything like that. And so what we as the pro-life movement do is we want to counteract what the abortion industry has been pushing for so long, that the abortion industry is preying on women in their time of deepest need, when they're the most vulnerable, by demanding that women pay them hundreds of dollars to terminate the life of their unborn children, pretending like it's going to solve their problems. But the pro-life movement recognizes that is not going to solve the problems she's facing. And instead, we want to walk alongside of her through pregnancy and beyond by recognizing what services that she is in need of, what resources she needs. That may mean addiction recovery or housing or transportation or you name it. And so that really is the heart of Her Plan, is to make sure that there is an all-encompassing source for women to receive the help that they need during pregnancy and then well beyond. And
you're not alone, because I know one of our former alumni, Anya, she's the Her Plan coordinator in Mississippi. So I see her on various media channels when there's interviews about Her Plan. Where is Her Plan at across the country? How many coordinators do you have?
So we have online directories of life-affirming resources across 7 categories of care in 21 states right now, and we're continuing to expand. We have state coordinators. In addition to West Virginia and Mississippi, like you mentioned, we have Tennessee, Virginia, Texas, Missouri, and we're going to be continuing to add states.
That's interesting. Are you guys picking
Georgia?
Are you picking the abortion-free states first? Is that your strategy?
So our goal is to make sure that states that are protecting life have the networks that women need when they're facing unexpected pregnancies. And so if abortion is off the table, the number of pregnancies are going to continue to increase, and we want to make sure that the women in those states have the resources and the services.
How does that go? Because I remember when I was in Mississippi, we're doing this is how I find friends, is at protests. I reunite with people. So Anya came to something we did. I don't know. We were in Jackson. Anya just was there. I was like, oh, yeah. And so I was catching up with her a little bit about what she was doing with Her Plan Mississippi. And she was telling me about, she was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to interview this it was some community service group that was not like a pro-life group, but provided some service that she thought that the pregnancy centers needed to be in connection with so they could refer women. How does that go? I mean, West Virginia, Mississippi are kind of different, but like going to like an addiction recovery place and be like, hey, I'm the pro-life movement and we want to refer women to you and partner with you from our highly controversial, depending on who you're talking to, pregnancy centers. Do you ever have a challenge? Like groups are like, no, just we don't want to be.
You know what's so interesting? West Virginia, like, you know, you're a West Virginia girl. We got to stick together.
That's right.
But West Virginia really is a pro-life state. I think that we really have done a great job of defending our most vulnerable in West Virginia. It's something that we value. Life is something that we value. But it's really cool, like in the addiction space, it's been incredibly beautiful, actually, for me to see these connections take place. And so we've been able to connect with a couple of different organizations. In fact, there was one, I won't mention their name because I didn't ask for permission, but I connected with them right after I took the job as the state coordinator in West Virginia. And they provide a lot of services for children who are born with neonatal abstinence syndrome. And they were like, yeah, like, we think it's cool what you guys are doing. We're just not sure that, you know, we really like fit into this. Like, we're not sure how we see it. And I was like, well, you know, that's okay. Like, we just want people to know that you're here, that you're doing a lot of great work. And we want you to know what services are available even for your clients so that you can collaborate with each other. A couple months later, I got an email asking me to connect with them on a phone call. And they reached out and we hopped on the call, and they had a client, a former client, come in and tell them that she was struggling with addiction. This was her third pregnancy. She was struggling with addiction, and she wanted to have an abortion because she was afraid she was going to lose custody of her two older children. And they were like, we don't know what to do. Like, we're clearly not going to, you know, refer her for an abortion. But what can we do?
Which is now illegal in West Virginia.
Which is now illegal in West Virginia. Yes,
thanks to you. So your last vote.
It was a team effort. Yes, it was actually the proudest moment of my life was being able to protect life in the state of West Virginia. But that's a story for another day. But so anyway, they reached out, and this was before that happened. Right before the special session occurred to protect life in West Virginia. But they reached out and they were like, we don't really like know what to do. Like, what do we say? How do we talk to them? And we were able to connect them with one of the leading pro-life pregnancy resource center contacts in the state to really talk them through like what it looks like to support women in these instances. And I reached out about a month ago just to get an update, and that baby was born. That baby, I think, is 6 months old now. That's awesome. And she, I think, is in recovery. And so it's just been really beautiful. And what's so cool is that what we're seeing are, you know, when women are struggling with addiction through pregnancy, there haven't traditionally been a lot of resources. But what I'm seeing throughout the state of West Virginia is that there are a lot of life-affirming recovery programs that are popping up that are specifically for pregnant women in Southern West Virginia and around the state. And it's so encouraging as a West Virginia girl who has, you know, seen firsthand the impact of addiction in our state. It's been really beautiful to see that build up. Yeah.
What about people who aren't living in Mississippi or West Virginia or Tennessee? Sorry about your luck.
Yes.
Who are saying, this sounds like a great idea. How can I do this? You know, just me, myself.
Yeah.
Like, how can I do what her plan's doing in my area, my community, and even in my state?
Yeah. So I love this question because part of what we believe at Her Plan is what I said a few moments ago, that there's a place for everybody in the pro-life movement. And we actually have an initiative within our organization called Pathways. And sort of the idea behind Pathways is that everybody fits into the pro-life movement in some way, shape, or form. And so for people who want to get involved, who feel passionate about supporting vulnerable women and their children and their families, I would encourage them to go to herplan.org and download our Pathways Guide. Because there are over 100 ways.
It's a little heavy.
It's a lot. There's so many opportunities. Like, but you know what? It just goes to show that there's so many things. Just many options.
Take it like 5 pages at a time.
5 pages at a time, late night, easy reading, and it'll get you passionate, and it'll show you that, you know, whatever you're passionate about, you know, whether you're passionate about supporting foster families in your area or whether you want to mentor single moms or whatever it is, there are so many ways, so many opportunities that you can get involved, no matter what it is the Lord has called you to, no matter what it is, the gifts that are in your life. And that's the goal behind Pathways, is to show you that, wow, no matter who you are, there's a place for you. You fit into this. And it's not just that we want you to be a part of this. We need you. Women need you. And so, so I would encourage them to do that.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great way for any of us to get started. I know at standingwithyou.org, we've got just like I call it, I think there's an official name. I don't know the official name. It's like a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
But that's one of the first things we always tell our students for life groups to do is, find, here's a booklet of like all the resources that should or hopefully are in your community. Let's go and find them and then print this out, distribute it, and really figure out where your holes, the gaps of service are that you can get involved. And I think what you're doing is incredible, because not only are you save that baby and help that mother, and you probably helped her children, that entire family was served, but I bet you're probably also changing when you're having and building those relationships with those addiction groups or other organizations, changing their perceptions of the pro-life movement as well, and what being pro-life really means and what it's about, and softening hearts.
That's actually one of my favorite things, that I've had so many people come up and just be like, I didn't realize that I fit into the life of, like, I met with a dentist, and pregnant women and their children need dental care. And so I met with him and I was like, hey, we would love to connect with you. And he was like, I didn't realize that what I was doing was pro-life work. And I'm like, heck yes, it's pro-life work.
Care of your teeth. If you don't take care of your teeth, you'll die.
Absolutely. You only get one set of these.
That's right.
So it's just really cool to hear people say, like, I didn't realize that what I was doing was pro-life work. But it really does go to show that it is about creating a culture of life, but not just being pro-life. But I love the phrase like pro-abundant life. I can't remember who I heard say that. CareNet. I love that. I love that phrase. And so it's really just beautiful to see people starting to realize, like, oh, like, I fit into this. I have a place here. So.
That's right. That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us tonight and being here and speaking at National Standing with Her Sunday. Thank you all for listening to this wonderful interview about her plan. And we're going to take a short break. I'll be back with my last guest for today's podcast. Hey, ProLife Jen, welcome back. I have a very special guest. I've saved probably the best for last. Now, as you know, we're behind the scenes at National Standing with Her Sunday. I have with me Kayla Jones. She's a Grammy award-winning artist. Yeah. She was a member of the Pussycat Dolls, and she has a brand new single, Breathe Into Me, that she performed live here tonight in Fredericksburg, Virginia. If you didn't watch the Simulcast, go to standingwithhersunday.org and watch it. But Kaya, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And coming, especially after the performance and the show. But tell me why you felt it's so important to come and share, with the room here and then the thousands who are watching across the country.
Yeah. Well, it's important to me because this issue it's a global issue. It's not just an American issue. Right. And writing this song, I literally pressured my manager, like, we have to move on this now, because I felt the yearn and the need to talk about what I went through in the Pussycat Dolls, talk about what I went through as a young woman, not knowing better, and then knowing better, and then still choosing to not do better. And I just feel there needs to be more awareness with young girls that we're not really discussing to them. The ramifications are very real. And it's pain and PTSD that's very real, and it's for the babies. So Breathe Into Me is about God breathing life into us. He knew us before he knitted us in the womb, and every life matters. And we have to speak for those who can't. So it's just time, and I just felt honored and privileged to be here with all of you.
Well, it's a beautiful song. I was so excited to have you share it in person.
Thank you.
I know you were DMing me on Instagram, which sometimes I don't always answer my DMs, but it was me when you were actually DMing. I was like, oh, there's no conversation. And it's a beautiful song.
Thank you.
What, I guess, as a woman who, is post-abortive, what do you think the pro-life movement, this is kind of an action-oriented podcast because I'm kind of a bossy person, but what do you think the pro-life movement or just Christians in general should be doing better to speak into, post-abortive men and women and to get them on the road to healing
Well, I feel like it was a direct download from the Lord when I knew I had to speak on the subject. So I feel like this is maybe the right answer for it. I was speaking at a college campus, not about life. I was speaking of just being, a believer in God and a conservative girl. And there was a pro-life activist speaking. And she for sure didn't have an abortion. And I could tell because there were a lot of women in the room that you could see their anger just rise, the pain just rise. And I could spot them because I've been through that too. And I just felt like we're not loving them. They're in pain. They took a life inside of their body. They were complicit in it. And the men have had to be quiet about it. And that pain is very real. And if we don't kind of come with loving arms, like, listen, we're all Barabbas. Jesus died for Barabbas too. And we need to love them. They're broken. I've been there. I get it. And, God has forgiven you your sin. Now you need to forgive yourself and do better. And it's okay. You made a mistake. God knows the babies that are going to make it here. And he knows the ones that aren't because he knows all. But we need to be better about loving the moms and the dads that have lost and also be better about stopping this global. It's really an epidemic that's like on another. It's like human trafficking. It's on a level that's so serious that we have to say and do more. We cannot just watch over and over millions of babies being aborted and being like, well, you know what? It's her body, it's her choice, but no one's speaking for these babies. And I think that's where we got to love the people that have made mistakes, not hate them, because they're going to be the biggest talkers. They really are. When we explain that it's okay, like, and that's where I feel if I fit in this world where I fit is to really love on those that have done the exact same thing as me. And God has forgiven me. And I prayed one time in a deep prayer and I said, God, will you just show me my children? And he did. And they weren't in infant form. They had grown. And I think we forget that just because you've lost a child or you were part of this, like name your baby. Name your baby because you are the mother or father of a dead child. And that's very real. And whether you realize it here or it's when you meet the Lord on the other side and you meet your family, your baby should have been here. And I've never met a parent who's ever regretted their child. But as someone who didn't have mine, I regret it every single day. And I think we need to just be kind to those that have lost and figure out a way to better strategically heal as a society that has pushed this on young boys and young women, especially young women with career. You can't do it. Yes, you can. And there are organizations that are helping women every single day better to walk, whether it's alone or you choose to give up the baby. There are other methods than abortion.
Absolutely. I know that's something that's really powerful and important. Anytime I give one of my talks on college campuses or anytime I know there's going to be controversy, that's, in the first paragraph of my opening statement is, abortion support websites, either it's like hope, supportafterabortion.org or another website, or Standing With You, an option line where you can go for resources, because I think that's so important. I always start with saying, I'm going to tell you why I believe abortion is wrong. But if you're sitting in this room and you've had an abortion, I'm not saying you're a bad person. And just that disclaimer. And then all hell usually breaks loose about 30 minutes later. Anyway, that was already pre-planned. But I find it is very enlightening, though, when you say those words and you look out to the crowd. It's very easy to spot those who are still hurting from a past abortion decision. Yeah.
You can see it. It rises really quickly. I've even had friends who have never said a word to me and they know where I stand. And now I've seen it rise in them where they're like, and I'm like, it's okay. Some have gotten angry, like, why are you now this, speaking so boldly about life? And I'm like, because I've had it. Because I've gone through that. And they're like, well, I've had it too. I had 2. And I'm like, I've had 3. That doesn't make anyone better or worse. We're all really wrong at choosing to not be honest with that these are real babies. And had they just been in a nurturing atmosphere, they would be adults, they would be children, they would be vibrant, they would be flourishing and building our world. And that's real. So like to just be negative of it, oh, it's not real, or it's just it's not. And I think it's kind of crazy as a society that we're just choosing to just be like, well, she can do what she wants to do. But if she doesn't know any better, or she doesn't know she has resources, that's the thing. There's a fine line for me. Had I known I had a support system or resources, I probably would have made different decisions for sure. But I didn't know that I had that, and no one was around me, advocating that.
Yeah. I mean, do you think the reason people get upset with you being someone who is post-abortive, because they just want you to be silent? Because I find that it's like, when you start talking about, well, I feel like, I was wrong. I had this abortion. I was wrong. Because the more you talk about it, the more it makes them think about this thing that they don't want to talk about.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing, though, is that we have to have this discussion, because when I went through the first abortion, I was 16 years old. And I remember waking up and feeling like someone took a kidney out of me. Somebody took something that belonged to my body. But I was so disassociated with my choice that it was kind of like, well, I had no other choice, and I'm signed to Capitol Records, and it's about my career. I'm 16. Now I'm in the Pussycat Dolls. Well, you have to get rid of it, or, you're fired. That's your job. And so you're kind of then, now I'm back at it again.
You think that's like a lawsuit or something like that?
I mean, I wish that was the case, but it was not treated as such. It was kind of like back then, nope, someone will replace you and you lose your job just like that. And as I was going through that abortion, I was actually hemorrhaging when I'm performing live at Divas Live, and there's these two little girls in the front row, and that was actually God speaking through children. These two babies looked at me and were like, oh, she's a pussycat doll, Mom. They were looking up to me, and I was going through the loss of my child. And I just felt like, I can't sell this. I can't do this. She thinks I'm beautiful. I'm a murderer. I'm horrible right now. And I don't want this for myself. And I mean, that's really when it's like, we have to be honest. The PTSD on the other side is real, and it's brutal. And when you've done it once, you feel like, oh, it's no big deal, right? So when I was asked, it was like, well, no big deal. The third one I wanted to keep in, it was a rape. And the guy I knew, he then wanted to take the baby. And I was like, wait, you raped me and now you're wanting to, he's like, lawyer up. And I went through this whole situation. Yeah. What's amazing is how good God is. He has since apologized, because he knew he pushed me to make a choice I didn't want to make. And he has since apologized, and I have since forgiven him. It's amazing how God works, though. He put a woman in his life that has 3 babies that had no dad. So he gets to be a father to those that really need. And this road that the Lord has me on is talking about this, because I do believe, not only do I believe, I've seen there are girls that have kept their baby because of my story. And they've sent me their pictures of their babies. And like, how did I ever think for a second I shouldn't have had him or her? And the best one is, this little boy that's been born, the mother saying, he's my best friend. And I can't believe for a second I questioned having him. Thank you for making me rethink this entirely. So it's already having an effect. And I think that's why it's important for those who have had them, speak up, say the truth to young girls. There needs to be a Surgeon General warning to young girls who are out there doing this. They're doing this to their body, and they think like, well, it won't affect me, but it will. You will be like, my birthday's tomorrow. I'm 39 years old. I'm 39 and without a child. And now I know I'm going to eventually be a mom, God willing, even if I have to adopt. But the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of women that are my age without children, because we come from a society that's perpetuated the importance of doing what you want with your body, doing what you want with your career, doing what you want with your life. And if I just do this, I can still do whatever I want. But it really will catch up with you.
Right.
And when it does, it's going to hurt. And if I can just be that, sounding board, don't do what I did. Learn from someone who's trying to figure it out as I walk it through. And it's a real painful thing. And I think it's a very hard subject to discuss. But if we come to this discussion and this table with love, I think that it will make a difference because more babies need to be born, especially in America. We're on a decline of keeping population growth big time.
For the first time in our nation's history, we're below replacement value. And no one's speaking about it. Elon Musk is like the biggest.
I know.
And I don't think
he has like 6 kids.
I think he actually has more than that.
He has more?
Google this. I think he has like 8.
She's like, I'm gonna Google that.
There's
He's got a lot of kids.
There's a lot. And multiple like partners or. How many kids does Elon have? There's a lot. Well, the first one came up was Nick Cannon. 9.
9?
He has 9 kids.
Okay, I was way off. I was like 6.
Yeah, it's that's kind of a lot. That's busy. He's a busy guy. I'm glad he's a billionaire. He can
afford to be busy.
Yeah, they'll all have really nice trust funds. But
that's true.
Well, thank you for coming on tonight,
thank
sharing.
You for having
I know
me.
We're behind the stage, but you actually shared your full story with Christine Jurgen, our team, with her Speak Out podcast. And so I encourage you, if you heard kind of Kaya talking about her story, look for Christine's podcast. It's wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah. But it was a beautiful episode. And you kind of go through your whole story.
I go through the whole.
You do, and so I didn't want to make you rehash all that tonight. I know it's after the event, but I want to thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me
and performing for us live. For those of us came live, and then also for the thousands watching via live stream. So thank you all for tuning in. It's a very special episode of the Explicitly ProLife podcast. Real quick, where can folks follow you and all of your latest music?
KayaJones.com, and it's just KAYA Jones at all the different social media. I'm on everything.
And she's very responsive too.
I am very responsive. I was like the biggest fan. I was like, I have to work with you. I want to talk to you. I have to meet you because I think you're such an imperative voice for this culture that needs to be heard. And truly, you're so well educated on this subject and you speak at the core truth that's sometimes hard to hear, but your voice is extremely important in this time.
Well, so it's the whole ProLife generation.
It is, but
I'm like the worst
I really love watching your videos. I'm like,
generation. I do it out of love. I know people think I'm just.
It's savage, but it's savage truth, and the truth isn't always happy all the time.
Like 40 minutes of people screaming at me too. Is that what people don't also see?
We don't see that.
No, I had a Christian school actually disinvite me to speak because they were like, "We watched your videos and you're too mean." I'm like, well, I'm a perfectly lovely person during my whole presentation, but when people start barking at me in the Q&A, I'm just gonna tell
Jesus threw over tables too. Yeah, I mean, I think people forget.
Righteous anger there too, but
no,
I was like, okay,
and rightfully so. You're passionate about these babies.
Yeah,
and somebody really does in this time. Somebody really has to be bold, and not cower.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this special podcast. Bye everyone.